Welcome back to the adventure. Today we are extracting MS-DOS 8 from Windows Millennium Edition. Windows ME is now 20 years old. In celebration of its anniversary, let's try to make use of its underlying version of MS-DOS. Why are we doing this, you may ask? With earlier versions of DOS, you can download installation disk images from various places on the web. Even with version 7.10 from Windows 98, there has been an unofficial distribution in circulation for many years. However, no such thing exists for MS-DOS 8. For this project, we will need a Windows ME installation disk or disk image, a program that can manage compressed files, a program that can open and extract files from floppy disk images, and a program that can burn CDs or create ISO files. We can use the unofficial MS-DOS 7 distribution as a guide for what files we will pull from Windows ME. Open a browser and go to winworldpc.com. Click on Library in the top navigation bar. Under the DOS and CPM heading, click on MS-DOS. Below the top paragraph, click on 7.1 CDU. Towards the bottom of the page, we have a couple download options. We want the CD image. Select the download mirror and the file will begin downloading. When the download finishes, we can open it. What we have here is a compressed file containing the ISO. It is a .7z file which can be opened by 7-zip or your compressed file manager of choice. Drag and drop the files onto the desktop and open it with our CD burning software. Drag and drop the DOS7.1 folder from the image to the desktop. Inside the folder are two compressed files that we can open to see a list of files we want to pull from Windows ME. Now we can open our ME installation disk image. If you don't have a disk or disk image on hand, you can download a copy from winworldpc.com. Here are the contents of the disk image. In the Win9x folder are a number of cab files, which are both compressed and span across multiple files. Drag and drop everything from the Win9x folder to a new folder on the desktop. After the files finish copying, open win_8.cab. Extract the contents of the file to another folder on the desktop. From here, it is an exercise in locating all of the files from DOS 8 and moving them to yet another new folder. Not all the files will be there, as some are part of the setup wizard for DOS and others are pulled from different sources. Create a new folder and we can call it DOS 8. Now, click on any file in the list from Windows ME and start typing the name of the file we are looking for. The first file we can pull from Windows ME is a trib. We can now drag and drop a trib to our DOS 8 folder. The next file we can pull is checkdisk. Again, click on any file from the list and start typing the name of the file we are looking for. Drag and drop the file to the DOS 8 folder. Repeat this step for all the files we need to pull from Windows ME. A link will be in the description to a blog post that lists the files and locations to pull. The process is the same as the previous video, linked in the card above, for pulling the files from MS-DOS 6.22 and the supplemental disk, as well as Cute Mouse and the DOS long file names. If you already made your own DOS 7 installation disk, you can copy the remaining files from that disk image. Once we have accumulated all the files, we can open our CD burning software, then drag and drop them into a new disk image, Save that as an ISO. The ISO isn't bootable, so we need to head over to allbootdisks.com and download a boot disk for Windows ME. Now we can create a new virtual machine. We can keep it simple. Go with a 500 megabyte hard drive. Don't forget to go into the settings of the virtual machine and mount the disk images. From here, boot up the virtual machine. We will need to format the disk. The version of fdisk that comes with ME is a little more powerful than the one included in DOS 6.22. At the prompt, type fdisk/PRI:500 then press enter. That will give us a 500 megabyte primary partition that is marked active. Reboot the machine. For formatting the drive, at the prompt, type format/s/autotest. This will both add system files, so the drive will be bootable, and suppress the prompts from format. We have a problem. The version of format included with Windows ME does not support the /s parameter. We just get this error. I have attempted to solve this issue in several different ways. Using format from Windows 98 does not solve the problem. It does support the /s parameter, but it uses a different version of command.com that is from Windows 98. So we essentially have DOS 7.10. Well, what if we boot from a Windows 98 disk, then just copy command.com from our CD over to the floppy disk? Then when we format /s, it will use command.com from Windows ME, right? Right? No, it still uses command.com from Windows 98. So we replaced command.com on the floppy disk. We can confirm the date modified is correct for the version of command.com from Windows ME. Where is format pulling the other version of command.com? It's not on the floppy disk. If anyone knows the answer to this, please leave it in the comments down below. Okay, if we use format /s from the Windows 98 boot disk, we could copy command.com from our CD over to the hard drive, then reboot the PC. That should work, right? The problem is that it doesn't. We just get a message to select the command interpreter. There must be a solution to this problem, which we will find out what that is. There is an alternative way to copy system files. Let's give that a quick test. At the prompt, type sys c:. This seems to have an issue as well. In previous versions of DOS, the sys command allowed you to define the source for the system files. This version of sys does not have that option. There are 3 files that need to be on the hard drive. io.sys, which needs to be first, followed by msdos.sys, and command.com. Just copying these files over to the hard drive does not work. Real mode DOS was removed from Windows ME. I'm using massive air quotes when I say removed, because the code is still there. It is the mechanism to access it that is gone. There is an unofficial patch that allows you to access real mode DOS under Windows ME. Among the other wizardry involved, it modifies the io.sys file. I believe that is the path forward. The website where the patch can be downloaded is no longer available, so we have to access it from the Internet Archive Wayback Machine. A link will be in the description. There is one more file that we need to grab from Windows ME and add it to our DOS 8 installation disk. The file we are looking for is regenv32.exe. Once we find it, we can copy it over to the disk image. Save the ISO again. Then take winmedos.com and add it to our boot disk with WinImage. Now to boot the virtual machine from our ME boot disk. Start with CD-ROM support. Now would be a good time to verify our ISO is mounted. At the prompt, type copy regenv32.exe space a:. Next, the files we need to modify have to have a few attributes changed. From a:, at the prompt, type attrib -r-s-h/s. Then press enter. If it worked, we get the prompt again. What we did was remove read-only, hidden, and system from the file attributes. Now type winmedos.com at the prompt. Press enter. Press any key to proceed. The files should now be patched. Now to format the drive like normal. Then copy io.sys to drive C. Followed by msdos.sys and command.com. Reboot the machine, and we now have a bootable drive with MS-DOS 8. We have to delve into and explore what this version of DOS is capable of, because according to the internet, there's no reason to use it over MS-DOS 7.10. I say, challenge accepted. Before we get into testing programs, we need to have a basic understanding of how memory management works under this version of DOS. It is actually closer to how Windows XP emulates DOS than it is to DOS 6.22. What we have here is a fresh installation with no configsys or autoexec.bat file. This means that nothing has been configured to load on boot, except the command interpreter itself. Let's take a look at how memory is allocated currently. You may notice right off the bat, XMS or extended memory is present. Taking a closer look, you may also notice that DOS is loaded in the high memory area. There is actually a memory manager already running. If we create a configsys file and attempt to load high-mem.sys, we get this error. Windows XMS driver is the memory manager that loads on boot, and at present, we have no control over. If we instead load just EMM386, the system hangs on boot. I mentioned that this version of DOS is more like the emulated version from Windows XP. If we take a look at a DOS file and check the properties, there is a tab that allows us to specify variables for the DOS environment. We actually have the same settings in Windows ME. There has to be a way to see how these variables are being passed to DOS. If we can see the syntax used, we may be able to enter that in our configsys file, allowing us to control the memory manager. Back to our standalone MS-DOS installation. For the first line of our configsys file, we can go with DOS equals UMB. As DOS automatically loads in the high memory area, we don't need to specify that here. For a realistic test, we want to add CD-ROM support, a mouse driver, and sound. We can set up CD-ROM support right here. The OAK CD-ROM driver can be found on the ME boot disk. We want to use device high so the driver will load into upper memory. Save and exit. Then we need to create an autoexec bat file. MSCDEX can be found on the ME boot disk as well. Now to set up the mouse driver, which is on the installation disk we created previously. Save and exit. Next we need a driver for our sound card. There is an installation package that we can use. I don't like having programs modify the config.sys and autoexec bat files for me, but there is a convenience to it. Now let's restart the system and take a look at how memory is being allocated. We still don't have access to upper memory. EMM386 won't work for us. However, there is an alternative. Let's try installing QEMM. Per usual, we want to do a custom installation so we can at least see what the options are. Nothing too complicated that it lets us change at this step. For the optimization, I'm going to go with Express, because it can fine-tune the order things load into upper memory faster and more efficiently than I can. I find this part to be very interesting. It's loading the TSRs similar to how they would on boot, and testing the memory footprint of each one. There we go, 625K of free conventional memory. Now to reboot and check the memory allocation one more time. Awesome, we do have access to the upper memory blocks now. From here, we can start testing programs and games. First, we need to create a new virtual machine. 4 megs of RAM is plenty for our purposes. 500 megabytes for the hard drive is all we need for now. Don't forget to go into settings and mount the CD image. Now to start our virtual machine. The system boots directly into the setup menu. For new systems, we can start with item 1 and work our way down to 6. We need to partition the hard drive first, so let's do that. We are taken directly into fdisk. Option 1 for a new partition. Option 1 again to make it a primary partition. Yes, we want to make the partition active. Now we can exit fdisk. This takes us right back to the setup menu. However, we still need to restart the system before proceeding. After the restart, we can select option 2, which will first warn us of data loss. I agree, so we can press any key to continue. The format just zips right on by, and we're back in the setup menu. Now for option number 3. I think number 3 may be my favorite. We will take a closer look at exactly what this does in a moment. Select option 3, and a bunch of text flies across the screen, and we're thrown back into the menu. On to option 4, yes, I agree. Press any key, and that will write a config.sys file for us. Option number 5 is similar. That will create an autoexec.bat file for us. Last but not least, we have option 6, which will exit the menu. Let's restart the computer again. Be sure to unmount the CD image. Awesome, we have a bare bones installation of MS-DOS 8. I personally do not like it when software edits my system configuration, especially when it doesn't tell me exactly what it's doing. So let's take a look at the setup menu. Pretty standard stuff at the beginning. I ran into an issue with @echo off, so you may have noticed that we are using echo off instead. Next, we clear the screen, so anything that was on it will be gone. The next section is simply what is displayed on the screen. This is for the user, so they know what pressing the different numbers will do. Following that, we have choice, which drives the menu. It prompts the user to press a key. Technically, it can be any key, but we just want the user to select a number between 1 and 6. Next, we have error level, which is the mechanism that connects the number key pressed to the next action taken. Note that the error level does need to be in reverse order, meaning starting with the highest number and going down from there. The way we read this is if error level is 1, for example, the next action is go to part. Go to is the command and part is the label. Labels start with a colon and are followed by a name, which in this case is part. You can name the labels whatever you like. I was just going for a logical connection between the label name and the following commands. So when we press 1, the batch file skips down to part, which runs fdisk from the A drive. Part of how the installation CD works is having the boot information, which is basically a Windows ME boot disk. Drive A has the same contents as the floppy disk image I used, and those files can be accessed under the A drive. There is also the remaining contents of the CD, which can be accessed from the E drive. After we finish partitioning the drive with fdisk, we are taken back to the menu. We have another go-to command, and the destination is the menu label, which is towards the very top. Moving on, not much to say about format other than the version included with Windows ME gives us the auto test switch, which suppresses all of the prompts and messages from format. Next, we have the option for installing MS-DOS. This starts out with copying over io.sys, ms-dos.sys, and command.com from the CD over to the hard drive. It then creates the directory on the hard drive for DOS, and copies all of the files from the CD over to the new directory. Then we have call, followed by the path to another batch file. We'll take a closer look at what the other batch file does in a moment. Call is telling the batch file to execute another batch file and then return to this one. The next two options are not really that interesting. It will overwrite the file if it already exists. We are warning for that. Then it gives an extremely basic setup. For the config.sys file, we have DOS equals UMB, which tells DOS to manage upper memory blocks. Then we add a device for setver, which allows us to run programs from older versions of MS-DOS. autoexec.bat is just setting the path environmental variable, so when you type a command at the prompt, it will look at both the DOS directory and the root of C. Now for the other batch file, let's open that up. It simply adds entries to the setver table that tells DOS to behave like the version specified instead of itself. That is an oversimplification, but you get the gist. It allows us to run older DOS programs under MS-DOS 8. Now, for what I believe is the single most important part of this video. Is this ready for public release? What did I miss? What should be added? Options to make a more complicated config.sys and autoexec.bat file? Maybe another menu for optional programs you'd like to install, like QEMM? Tell me down in the comments what you would like to see. So far, we have extracted MS-DOS 8 from Windows ME, installed it, and made an installation disk which is now available on archive.org. So why the heck would you use MS-DOS 8 over 7 or 6.22? Well, for starters, io.sys includes a memory manager and smart drive, which you would normally have to set up in a config.sys or autoexec bat file. Smart drive creates a disk cache in memory, which significantly increases the speed of MS-DOS accessing the drive. The io.sys file is also compressed, reducing its size and making it faster to load. The combination of these things gives us a reduced cold boot time. While not the most significant on modern hardware, a period-appropriate system would have a noticeable difference in performance. Here is what memory usage looks like in MS-DOS 8 with no config.sys or autoexec bat file. If we were to take MS-DOS 7 and replicate this, we need to load smart drive and himem.sys. We also need to set DOS high. And here is what memory usage would look like. Then we could do the same thing for MS-DOS 6.22. As you may have noticed, MS-DOS 8 has more efficient memory management. On to the next point of interest. The installation process is very fast thanks to smart drive loading on boot. And smooth. There are far fewer prompts like what we see when installing MS-DOS 7, and no changing floppy disks like what we have to do to install MS-DOS 6.22. There are some other miscellaneous differences with file sizes between versions and text displayed on the boot menu. On boot, we get the message "Starting Windows Millennium Emergency Boot." That message is unique to MS-DOS 8. However, these differences do not amount to any real impact on user experience. There is, however, one drawback. While we can install Windows 3X on MS-DOS 8, it can only run in standard mode. This is due to not being able to load EMM386. I have, in testing, stumbled on a system configuration that works with QEMM. However, I'm not able to reliably reproduce those results. The test focus was on using QEMM's optimization tool to load EMM386. The unexpected result is that Windows 3.1 ran in 386 enhanced mode. I hope to have a more detailed explanation for this and the steps to reproduce it in a future video. I wanted to include QEMM with the installation CD, however there is a snag trying to use its installer package. It complains that it needs to run from drive A. Once I get this working, it will be included with the installation CD for MS-DOS 8. A few things I plan on implementing is a form of help file, a changelog, and a compatibility list for software. Let me know down in the comments what you think we should do next. We're taking a tour of the new MS-DOS 8.0 installation disk. Here we are at the main menu, which has been streamlined from the previous version. There used to be separate options for creating the config.sys and autoexec.bat files. However, these are a necessary part of the installation, so they have been built into item number 3. We also have some optional programs that we will get into later in the video, and breadcrumbs at the bottom of the menu to help with navigation. So let's partition and format the drive, then we can move on to installing MS-DOS. In testing, I found that fdisk can make up to a 20 gig partition, and format works up to 10 gigs of space. Now to select item 3. We now have two setup types, Express and Custom. Express gives us MS-DOS along with the config.sys and autoexec.bat files. Express gives us MS-DOS 8 along with the config.sys and autoexec.bat files pre-configured to load CD-ROM and mouse drivers. CD-ROM support uses cd1.sys and mscdex, and mouse support uses mouse.com. These drivers come with MS-DOS 6.22 and are not particularly efficient, but they work. Then we have Custom, which gives us several options along with installing MS-DOS. Let's take a look. We can install CD-ROM, mouse, USB, and Sound Blaster drivers, along with a variety of packet drivers. If the packet driver you need isn't listed here, I have another video on sourcing packet drivers. CD-ROM support uses the Oak driver and SHSU CDX. Mouse support uses Qt Mouse. These drivers have a smaller memory footprint, which helps save on valuable conventional memory. As for the MS-DOS component, it is no longer a sloppy copy that puts unnecessary files in the DOS directory. Also, only the selected drivers are copied to the hard disk. Back to the main menu. We have the option to install Windows 3.x. This feature is taken directly from the previous video on creating an installation disk for Windows 3.x. Note that you can install Windows 3.0 and 3.1 on MS-DOS 8 and run it in standard mode only. Now for my favorite part of the update, item number 5 on the main menu, optional programs. I feel like I'm in a candy store. There are so many great programs available for DOS that could potentially be packaged in this installer. We have networking clients, file managers, a browser, and QEMM. After installing QEMM, we have to eject the CD and restart the computer, then run Optimize. If we try to run Optimize when booting from the CD, it just complains that drive A is write protected. What other programs should be added to the list? Well, there we have it, the new installation disk for MS-DOS 8.0. The updated installation disk image is currently available on Patreon. Link is in the description. Thanks for stopping by. See you next video.